Hi everybody, I'm Jim Santos, Ecuador coastal correspondent for International Living. I thought I'd take some time today to show you how to make a traditional Ecuadorian meal here on the Pacific coast called ceviche. Now ceviche is one of those dishes that can be made hundreds of different ways. At its heart, it's some type of seafood and vegetables marinated in a citrusy blend of juices. Now there's ceviche de pescado, which uses fish. My personal favorite, ceviche mixto, which is a variety of seafood. But today we're going to kick it escuela vieja, or old school, and make ours with shrimp, ceviche de camarón. Now like any dish, if you're going to make it right, you need fresh ingredients. So we're going to start off with a quick trip to Salinas Mercado. So, vámonos! And here we are at the Mercado de Salinas, one of my favorite places to be, even on a rainy day. First stop is to get our oranges and limes at my fruit vendor. Then over for the most important part of the meal, 2 pounds of shrimp. And then we stop by Celinda's booth to get our red onions, our tomatoes, and some peppers. One other thing I need to get while I'm here is a plantano de verde, or green plantain, to make my patacone side dish. I only need one. Fortunately, there's a few to choose from. Now here's the vegetables we ended up with. I won't use all of these, so I'll have some leftovers, but it ended up costing me $2.25. The fruit I had a little problem with. I couldn't get quantities small enough, but I got 15 oranges and 15 limes for 50 cents each. Throw in the plantano, and it was $1.25 for the fruits. The shrimp, of course, was the most expensive part of the meal. That was $10 for 2 pounds, but still we're talking about $15 or less to make this entire meal. I've got my limes sliced up. They're, of course, the heart of a ceviche. I'm going to use my lime press then to squeeze them into this bowl. Next up is the red onion. I'll be saving the peel and the top and bottom of this to put in the stock later. And of course, the important thing here is to get a nice thin slice. Sometimes I'll use a mandoline to do this, but you can usually get a pretty decent thin slice just with a sharp knife. Now we're going to take those sliced onions and put them into the lime juice, add a couple of pinches of salt, and then mix that around and set it aside to be marinating for a while. Now this isn't traditional, but I do like putting in a little bit of green pepper and red pepper. I kind of like the crunch and the little extra texture to the ceviche. So add that to the marinating mix, give it a nice stir. And now we're on to the tomatoes. Again, not everyone uses tomatoes, but I'm preparing these to be peeled. I'm going to boil them first in the stock pot, or what will become my stock pot. And now it's on to that big pile of oranges I had there. Now I'm all about the kitchen toys, so I'm going to use my juicer here. This is really about all the orange juice I need for the ceviche, so I'll be making a pitcher of orange juice for the rest. Tomatoes now are ready to go into a bowl of ice water, so they'll stop cooking and I can peel the peels. And then I want to add some things to my boiling water for the stock pot. I'll also add a little bit of smashed garlic and some bay leaves. We'll let that boil for a while to get the flavors a little in the water. And then it's time to add the shrimp. Now once the shrimp are in here, we're going to let it come back to a boil that will only cook about 2 minutes. Meanwhile, back at my orange juice, I've got my orange juice for the ceviche and an entire pitcher, so I did well on my 50 cents. This is the only pre-processed food that goes in this dish. That's the ketchup that will be going in with the orange juice. We're going to stir that up to get a nice mix. And now it's time to get the shrimp out of the pot. They're getting the cold water treatment also. And then now I've got my peeled and deveined shrimp. I've got my tomatoes all diced and ready to go. And the last thing we're waiting on here is the stock pot. I put the shrimp shells back in there. We're letting it boil down a bit. After I drain off the broth, now it's time for a final assembly. Here go the marinating vegetables. We'll add the shrimp, our diced tomatoes, the orange juice and ketchup mixture, and then we'll add enough shrimp stock to cut it and make it a nice soupy mix here. I'll only use about 1.5 cups, but the rest of that I'll save aside for a future ceviche or for a batch of soup. Now we're adding some of the chopped fresh cilantro that we got from the mercado. A little bit of flavor here, and also just like the bright green look in the ceviche. The meal should be attractive as well as delicious. I tell you, at this point, it just smells incredible. Cover it up now and pop it in the fridge for 15 or 20 minutes so the flavors all blend, and we are ready to serve. Now here in Salinas, we usually put a couple of leaves of lettuce on the bottom of the bowl first. That's not strictly traditional, but it's just the way we do it on the coast. And I want to add a few spoons of the ceviche here, getting a nice mix of shrimp and vegetables and that delicious sauce, of course. And voila. Okay, it's only about 4 hours after we decided to make the ceviche this morning. We're ready for our lunch here. We've got our ceviche, we've got our patacones, we've got the canguil or popcorn, traditional thing to sprinkle on top. And I always like a little shot of ají, a little hot sauce on mine. So we're ready to see if it was all worth it right now. Brave.
Yeah.
I get a bite of shrimp in it. Good. Very good. It's got the little citrus tang from the orange juice mixture, a little tomatoey from the tomatoes and the ketchup. The shrimp are just nice and perfectly done. Really fun meal.
Deliciosos.
So that's it. Thank you for watching, and buen provecho from Salinas, Ecuador.